One of the metaverse and gaming stage at Consensus. I'm Leah Callum-Butler. We've got 3 days of exciting programming for you here. We're going to be covering everything from virtual land to virtual pets to virtual fashion and esports. We've got a discussion on what to do if your boss owns your Web3 identity. We've got a talk on how to make crypto games that don't suck, and a lot more. So we encourage you to ask questions during the sessions or meet up with the speakers afterwards. We're really looking for it to be super interactive. So let's get started. The turmoil at Twitter, the pivots at Meta, and a proliferation of Web3 and metaverse projects are fueling talk of a new, re-decentralized internet. But to break dependence on the centralized internet platforms that we currently rely on, we need a new architecture for data rights and digital social networks. So please welcome Ursula Oakingtons, Jeffrey E. Dell, Braxton Woodham, and Patrick Merck to share their visions on how this all plays out.
Well, we are just waiting for Braxton Woodham. He's coming shortly. Meantime, I'm going to introduce myself. Thank you for being here. This is such a great event, quite big and massive. Oh, there he is.
Elvis is in the house.
Yeah, saving the best for last.
So I'm Ursula Oakingtons. I'm the Director of Communications and Partnerships at the Web3 Foundation. And the Web3 Foundation was founded by Gavin Wood, the co-founder of Ethereum and founder of Polkadot, so you can visit our stand right there. And everything related with decentralized social stuff as well. So I'm very happy to be here in this panel because this is a conversation that has been going on for the last 2 years, I will say, with Braxton and part of his team. And we created this as a vision. It was an idea that today is becoming a reality. So I'm pretty excited to be here with this specific team that they're building decentralized social media. So first of all, I wanted for you to introduce yourself. You're going to make justice of your own title. So we can start for Braxton.
Thanks, Ursula. Braxton Woodham. I'm president at Unfinished Labs, now Amplica Labs. And we been working on this project. Should I talk about the project now?
Close it.
Talk about the project now, or do you want to?
You can introduce yourself first.
Oh, okay. President at Amplica Labs. We've been working on decentralized social for years now, focusing on supporting a protocol called DSNP, Decentralized Social Networking Protocol, that's designed to provide decentralized social data without any particular blockchain token or private company to really make the entire web socially aware. And then we're also contributors to a particular blockchain project called Frequency that provides infrastructure for the social web.
Patrick.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me here. So I'm Patrick Merck. I've been involved in the space here for a little bit now. And like, I guess, what, a dozen years now or something, when crypto was just Bitcoin. Led all the early public policy efforts around that through 2015. Before handing it off to Coin Center, I've been a lawyer, entrepreneur, founder, all the different hats you can wear in different startups and law firms and things in the ecosystem. Have been focused on both the financial regulation, but also identity and digital identity, which plays a huge role in how we understand property rights, and how things are regulated, generally speaking. I'm also an affiliate at the Berkman Klein Center at Harvard University, a collaborator at the MIT Digital Currency Initiative, and a principal and manager at Plural.vc.
Thank you, Ursula. happy to be here. I'm sort of the fish out of water. I come from Hollywood, so I think I stepped into the wrong conference here. I think I should have been in the film festival, not over here. So my name is Jeffrey Edel. I'm the chairman and CEO of MeWe, and it's really exciting for us to be partnering with Polkadot and Frequency and Braxton over here. My background, I sort of bounced between the tech world. I was there at the beginning chairman of MySpace. And so 20 years later now, with gray hair, I have the opportunity to do it again, my second rodeo with a company called MeWe. And MeWe is a privacy-based platform. We're subscription-based. And we have some exciting news that we're going to announce soon, but I won't spill the beans yet. So thank you for having me.
Well, as you can see, we have pretty open, a lot of variety with these three guests here. But I'm going to go to Braxton first because we have different brands. So I wanted to summarize and try to be as clear as I can. As I mentioned I do work at the Web3 Foundation. Our flagship project is Polkadot. And 2 years ago, I met with Braxton in New York, Braxton and Frank McCourt and Gavin Wood. And we were like brainstorming, and they were telling us the idea, the vision of create decentralized social media. That time, it wasn't a big thing. Right now, we have here a lot of projects, a lot of people want to decentralize the social media. It's not just Elon Musk. There are more people doing this. And right now, that vision is becoming a reality with MeWe. But Braxton, he has created a vision of social web. So I wanted to ask you, Braxton, first, how was because you're coming from the tech world. You're a tech guy from Silicon Valley, building different companies, and right now you have evolved from traditional tech companies into the Web3 world. So how is that vision created like almost 2 years ago, even before that, and now becoming a reality with Frequency and MeWe?
Well, I guess I'd say that my background with social networking and technology started a long time ago with kind of the Web 2 era. And if you think about the history of social networking, or even really the history of networking, we started with this open protocol for the internet that connected computers, and then a huge breakthrough with the HTTP protocol to connect data, link data. But what happened in kind of the era where I started doing my development was that people realized that data is created by people, and how do you link the people? And that became solved. That problem was solved by social networks and private platforms. And so that gave birth to the surveillance economy, which led to the polarization and the problems we see today. In being in kind of the front row and watching that play out, what became clear, I think, to a lot of people now is we need to pull that power of those networks and those network effects out of these private platforms. The question is, how do you accomplish that? And so that's been kind of now the focus of our team, my life's work, our focus of our team is how do you do that in the right way? And so we're focused on a vision where the web itself is socially aware, not a particular blockchain or a particular company. And then you can leverage all this technology, including Web3 technology, to actually decentralize the data and identities and all these other aspects. And so that's what we've been focused on. And so today we're finally taking that vision and all the work to develop it. We're this quarter now finally putting our first footprints on the moon. And so what's happening now is with MeWe, which has a large user base, especially in Web3 kind of scale, we're going to start actually having people on chain that are using a Web 2 app. So without having to go migrate and use some native Web 3 app, they'll seamlessly be on a blockchain where their graph, their relationships, their identity ultimately are owned by and controlled by them, as opposed to controlled by a private company. It's a bold move by MeWe because they're basically saying we're willing to give our users their own rights to control their own relationships and data, and at the same time provide value. So that's what we're doing today. You
just mentioned an important concept here, which is data. data, because on the decentralized social media users, we own our data. And this is something that is easy to say, hard to do it, because it requires a lot of technology. And since you are mentioning about data, Patrick Merck, he's been in the ecosystem for at least 10, 12 years. I met him like 7 years ago. And he's been working on the Bitcoin protocol and different protocols. He's a lawyer. And he came out with a concept lately, which is a data trust. So how do you materialize that concept in a social media application?
Yeah, and so I've been thinking a lot about data trust, and I'll explain that in a second. But to be clear, wasn't my idea, right? I'd love to take credit for it, but it's something that has been worked on for a number of years now. But the idea generally is that if you can create a property right in data, then you can use a trust structure. When you think of a trust, if anybody's had to do any sort of financial or life planning, you can set up a trust for yourself, for your family, but you can use trusts in a variety of different ways, and they can be quite large. Every exchange-traded fund that's publicly listed on the NASDAQ or New York Stock Exchange is in a type and form of trust. And so the idea of a data trust, which again, not mine, but something I've been thinking a lot about, is you can use that same trust structure to capture the property rights that users have in data, and then use that pool of rights to then market it and both allow certain uses and disallow certain uses, and also monetize it more effectively. If you think about the data that you're creating on Facebook's platform, which is not your data, it's Facebook's data about you, the actual data that they own about you as an individual is frankly just not worth that much. All of it together is obviously worth a considerable amount, as reflected in their still dropping stock price, but still pretty good, right? So if you were to take your own personal data and have some right in whatever it is that you're tracking about yourself, you wouldn't really be able to market or monetize that in any effective way. It's just too small of a transaction. There's not enough value there. If you could aggregate all of that together with a group of people, put that into a structure like a trust, then a trustee can manage all of that data that everybody has, market it, get some economic return, potentially pass a benefit on, and also create rules and structure around what is and what is not allowed to be done with that data over time. So that's the idea of a data trust and how that legal structure can work in this. The big problem with starting and formulating this idea of a data trust, same problem that Braxton is working on, and I think that you're helping with, which is, what is the right that you have? What is the property interest that you actually have in any of this data? Because again, on Facebook, it's not yours. Facebook has a property interest in the data they create about you. You don't have a property interest in it. That's the deal when you sign up with Facebook.
Yes, that's very true. I used to work as a journalist. I was working for free for Facebook. When Facebook came out with the Facebook Lives, which was the live stream, we thought, like, oh my God, this is amazing because we will have a way to distribute our content. But we were so naive that we were distributing for free. So we didn't monetize all of that content. So coming back to Jeffrey, because he's the one who is leading the application for the users. Right now, MeWe, it was founded in 2012 in California. And so far, they have 20 million registered users. So it's a pretty big number for social media. And it's not just registrations from the US, it's from everywhere. But all of this vision from Braxton, all of this legal stuff with data, it will be summarized in an application which is called MeWe. You can check that out on the internet. And Jeffrey, he comes from the Hollywood Web2 world, evolving into this Web3 world. So, Jeffrey, how is that evolution coming from Hollywood Web2 and evolving all of your users as well, and people that are already in the MeWe app, bringing them into the Web3 world? what's the challenge and what's the opportunities as well?
Thanks, Ursula. Well, it's certainly challenging coming from Web 2 to Web 3. The Web 3 world is not very well understood by regular users. It's sort of an esoteric thing when it comes to Hollywood and social media. And in addition to that, it's very challenging because what we're trying to do in the situation here, like we're talking about with Braxton, is we're trying to migrate people over. And so you have to induce them to do that. And there's all sorts of things, there's benefits that they get from this. Now, MeWe is a privacy-first network, which means that we never surveilled, we never amplified bad news or misinformation. That's just not something we do. So we're very logically set up to move into the Web3 world. In doing so, what happens is we can't step into that world with 20 million people. We have to sort of march into that slowly and prudently, but with full commitment. And so that is something we're looking to do with Amplica Labs and Braxton and so forth. So there's many challenges with it.
Well, you guys can chime in anytime, by the way. This is not like a standard communication and conversation as well. This is more like a friend's conversation.
All right, well, I'll take you up on that. Just to tie together, I think what Patrick and Jeffrey have been saying about the complex issues around data rights, data trusts, and then the complex issues at the user level. We think, we need to drive urgently change. Things are happening fast. And so that's why we thought it's important to have this Web 2.5 strategy of meet people where they are, migrate versus adopt, and that's really important. At the same time, social networks involve a lot of different problems, ranging from the user experience to moderation to AI algorithms for curation, all the way down to digital identities. And so it's virtually impossible to solve all problems at once. And so the approach we've been taking together is let's link our digital presence together on the web to create the social web. That will establish the network effects that are so powerful in a way that we can all leverage them as opposed to a few powerful platforms. That's step one. And then that sets up the ability to then attack the data layer and approach those difficult problems in the way that Patrick outlined. There's a lot of data. As he said, the power is in the aggregate data. Individual pieces of data at a user level are not very valuable. So we want that aggregate power to be available and a lot of other players in open markets to be able to access that data and work with it. So that's how that happens. There's a lot to be solved there, but that's the next stage. And the final stage is that value stage of how do we re-engineer the attention economy around that data. So we're on a journey that we think is really clear, and this is a really critical first step. As I said, the first footprints to the moon or the first footprints on the chain is putting these users, millions of users in this case, onto the chain for the first time, connecting them, and then stepping forward on the journey from there.
Yeah, no, that is an important point. But this all sounds beautiful, and at the end of the day, it's business. And with business, you need to create new revenue streams. As a former journalist, as I said, I used to use a lot Twitter and Facebook without receiving a single token, a single revenue back to me. Right now, this is something that the new decentralized social media, they're aiming to change, creating this monetizing content in order to incentivize new content creators. Do you guys are planning to have this out MeWe as well? Because you need content from everyone, all type of people. And journalism is one of the first way to get into this content streams in social media platforms?
Well, it's sort of natural on the MeWe platform because in addition to having 20 million users on the platform, we have 600,000 groups of interest. And those people that are either proponents of the groups, champions of these groups, they're creating their own content. So it's naturally occurring within the platform. And then Web3 is so new in this world, figuring out ways to monetize that are going to be critical. But because MeWe came from a subscription world, not from an advertising world, we don't capture people's data and turn around and sell that as these central networks do, like Facebook, Twitter, and the like. What we do is we're a free model that you can subscribe to. We even have, people treat us as Wikipedia. They make donations and they sponsor and so forth. It's wonderful because they want to have an alternative to these centralized platforms. Moving all of them over to this world, this town square kind of world that we're talking about, is going to take the whole centralized aspects of folks like Elon or so forth and Facebook and so on. It's going to take that out of the individual hands or a core of hands and put it into a decentralized world. So blockchain is like doubling down on privacy. So now you're allowing the technology to do what companies promise. Because who knows, someday MeWe could get acquired by someone, a big company, and in that instance, the privacy aspects could be lost. But once we commit to the blockchain, we're committing to that privacy side.
And please chime in anytime. Patrick, because you have an important role here. Decentralized social media will empower users. But with that empowering of users, using like governance systems as well, there's a lot of open questions regarding to regulation because we are still in the very early stage of all of this. So how do you see this challenge for the decentralized social media, like MeWe, for example?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, so again, like the biggest challenge to all of this, right? So MeWe has an interesting model where, you know, and I understand it, but the biggest challenge to decentralized identity and being able to create sort of market forces that open up these platforms so that more of them act like MeWe and less like this sort of centralized social networks, is actually delineating what is yours and what is somebody else's, right? In basic terms, like what is the property interest that anybody has in a particular bit of data that's being created at a given point in time. Like who owns it and how do you delineate that and architect it so that those rights are then respected on a forward-going basis. That is a legal question. It's also a technology question, and it's got to be at a very low level in the tech stack to really be able to describe what those rights are, who owns it, and who can use it, and on what terms, right? It can be done. It's been done in a lot of different industries. It just hasn't been done in terms of the data that's being created by you or about you online or through your online interactions or anything like that. In addition, right, you can see a future where you could pull those rights together in a trust structure or other structure and even have some sort of like governance system around it like a DAO or something along those lines that is more community oriented, but you do run into these regulatory considerations. Unfortunately, like most of the blockchain space, as it innovates in these token models, it started first in financial services. And so the mindset from a regulatory perspective is to look at these things as financial instruments first, which is why you have these endless conversations about if something's a security or a commodity or a payment token or whatever, right? So I think it's critical that if you're going to do that and build those systems, that from the outset you really make clear that this isn't a financial project, that you aren't financializing the governance of these systems, that it's truly about a community governance project and that there's not a financial aspect to that token, which I understand is difficult because there's a lot of secondary trading and things like that. But that's the challenge and that everybody has when they're architecting and building these systems.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think that a couple of things to build on what you're saying, there's the dynamics, we called out earlier, that the aggregate value versus individual transaction value that's not unheard of, but not as common in the finance world, and definitely not DeFi, et cetera. So it's a different kind of dynamic there. And I think it's important that people increasingly look at blockchain technology for applications where it's clearly powerful for things like just use cases involving plurality, fractional ownership, for example, other kinds of participation. People are experimenting with quadratic voting and all these things, but leveraging these tools. So it's just a tool, obviously, but it's a powerful tool, and it's I think there's been a lot of emphasis on the financial side, and we're just in the early innings of leveraging it for other use cases involving plurality and how humans interact.
Just imagine a world where you can rely on the data that you're hearing, and we don't have the divisiveness that exists in this world. This is part of what this project is all about. And MeWe's excited to be a part of it, to be able to give people, it's like the dawn of time, give you universal logins, the ability to have your own handle in this new Web3 world. We think it's going to be exciting as more companies move from 2 to 3. And we look at ourselves as 2.5 because in a way we're moving over a large bank of people. But this is going to happen over the next few months. I hope you're become a part of it, and we're doing a lot of things in connection with a lot of the universities. So this is an exciting time.
This is a good point to start wrapping up this panel, because you just said that you guys are evolving from Web 2. Right now you're at the stage of 2.5. What are the next steps in order to evolve into this Web 3 world for MeWe?
Well, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to deal with universal logins and, like I said, handles. We'll be assigning those. And then we're going to test this out right now. This is happening now. Test this out in the Web3 world by having new users come on board in the platform. And then we're going to move to, obviously, the mobile side of things, and then begin the full migration of the Web2 users over. And again, this will all happen within the next several months.
And handles is I want to emphasize that one. It's important because if you think about back in the 90s, the legislation that allowed you to have a portable phone number, your phone number used to be locked with a particular carrier. You know, if you had a Verizon phone number, you could not move it. What MeWe's doing, which is so bold, is they're allowing people to create handles they can take with them with any other application on the protocol. So we're at these early innings right now, but as the ecosystem grows, that could be a game changer to be able to take your handle, be discoverable all over the web as opposed to only on one particular application.
And it's so critical that you are able to control your own social graph. Your interactions and your communications and everything you're doing on a social platform should not be owned centrally and controlled by large tech. It should be yours. And we will figure out ways with you to monetize that so we could share in that wealth with you.
Yeah, and I think that is critical. And when you think your social graph, in many ways, your handle, I mean, that is your identity. And without identity, you can't have property. You can't have financial rights. So it's right at the absolute core of everything. The entire market structure that we're building out into Web3 and everything else we're doing, it revolves around that identity that says, this is me, which is your handle, your social graph, and a few other things as well. But those are absolutely critical core components.
I feel like you've been on our team for like years now.
And you didn't know we were buddies.
Now I do.
Well, since we are in the metaverse stage, and this is crucial as well for the metaverse, because there are large tech companies right now working on metaverses, and in order to evolve from different metaverses, you will need that handle in order to bring your own social graph into different metaverses as well.
Oh, definitely. We're also looking at coordinates, metaverse space-time coordinates as well. So once you have a universal fabric, a shared data layer, you can start to look at other things besides handles and like relating people, whether you're using metaverse app A or B, tying things together so you can have your dragon near your house in these virtual worlds.
And you don't have to pay Elon $8 for it.
Exactly.
Well, it's not just Elon, because right now we have seen the merge of different decentralized social media. So what Elon is doing is pretty public, and everyone is listening. But I have my faith on MeWe. As a former journalist, I would like to find a place where journalists can go and share their content as well. So I'm waiting for MeWe.
Thank you so much for that. And I think it's really important that people recognize true decentralization versus other things that are out there. Because companies will mask themselves in federated or privately owned servers, et cetera, and we are truly decentralizing. We are putting the power and the governance in the hands of the people. And that's what it should be, democratization.
Anything else that you want to add, Braxton? Because I see.
I thought it was well said. I was just saying right on. That was all I was saying. That's right. Trying to really be honest about this and do it right. Are we over?
I think that we are over time, so we need to go. Thank you very much for being here, and watch out
Thanks
for
all.
MeWe. Thank you.